Okay, you're good to go, Christine.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Have a good class.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Melissa. I thought maybe you just peeked in and left right away.
No, I'm here. I just kind of just moved some stuff around on my end. How are you?
I'm good. How are you
I
doing?
haven't seen you in so long.
I know. I've been here.
I know. I've seen you. I've seen you on GSU TV. I've been watching.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to be here for your check-in, so I'll be here 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure everybody's okay. And then it looks like you've already been pressed to live, so you're good to go. But if you need me, let me know.
Okay, thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good holiday.
You as well. Thank you. It's raining today here in Texas, so hopefully it doesn't rain tomorrow. We'll see.
Oh, it's sunny and freezing cold in Pennsylvania.
Is it? Oh my goodness. So I guess I'm okay then. Have a good one, Chris.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Hi, Lori. Good morning, everyone. If you need any assistance for technical help, Melissa is here for our first few minutes as we start.
Okay.
And also Max is here from Get Set Up as our support for chat. So as we go through this class, if you have specific questions that you want to have Max ask me, you could do that. Also, I don't mind if you unmute to ask me a correct question directly, that's okay also. But for anybody who needs that assist with Max, you can type into chat.
Okay.
So this is our morning Saturday class, getting started with an art lesson. So I'm glad to see you all. It is a cold, cold, sunny day here in Pennsylvania. I am going to share my screen and you should be able to see my first slide that gives you the title for the class, which is Introduction to Art Journaling. And if anybody is brand new here, welcome. We're glad you found us. And for those who have been here before, thanks for coming back. And I am putting my gallery of my faces that I see over to the other screen. So that's why I sometimes look over there. If you would like to share your video, but you're not doing it yet, just scroll over to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and you should see a little video camera that says Start Video. That's also where the mute button is. So if you do get unmuted for a certain reason and you have any background noise, please remember to mute. So again, welcome. And this class is titled Introduction to Art Journaling. And this little picture gives you a sense of what's to come, what we're going to talk about. So my name is Christine Hess, and if you haven't had me for a class before, I wanted you to know I live here in Pennsylvania, right near Harrisburg. My background degree was in art education, and then I went on for more classes in training and development. And I worked for 38 years in healthcare education, where I retired from in December, the end of December. So I did work on a pediatric floor for 24 years with kids there and got to use my art, and it was a very rewarding position. And then I went into patient education for the organization. I've also had a little bit of side hobbies and businesses such as antiquing, and I've been very involved with environmental education. And I love that I get to interact in person with older adults through Get Set Up. When I found out about them, I took a lot of classes. I still take them when I see ones that look so interesting to me. And I love that we can share with each other different things that we know about pertaining to things such as art. So this is a little bit of background about Get Set Up. And we are being live streamed today. We are also recording the class. So if you would like a copy of that, just email help@getsetup.io and they will send you a link to that recording. If you are joining by live stream, remember that the best way to participate is to join us and actually register for a class where then we can share our words and our faces. And I really enjoy that because I look over to my people and get reactions from them. And I also learn things from them when they share. So that's a good way to join us and become a member on the Get Set Up platform. And remember, Get Set Up is not paid to promote any special products. So today we are going to look at how to use art to add interest to journaling. Maybe you already do journaling, maybe you're going to start, but this is going to help you hopefully see how you can use art with it. And then we're going to look at the options for choosing art materials. We're also going to look at how art can be used with different subject matters and settings. And we're going to look at how you can create layouts for a journal, different ways. And then specifically at one of the ways I use quite often, I will walk you through an example from a blank page to a finished one, seeing that demonstration. So what is journaling and how can it be used? I chose this little picture here because journaling has become a really popular thing to do in the past, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years. But way before it was called journaling, I called it keeping a diary. So I don't know how many of you in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, those tumultuous years, had a diary where you saved your ideas and put thoughts in there. But I had one just like this little picture with a lock and key, and I would write "Dear Diary" and tell it and write down important things that were happening to me. So really, I was journaling, though we didn't call it journaling back there. We just said you were writing in your diary. So that's why I put this picture here. That's the first reason. So if you don't journal, this is what it's all about. A lot of people now do keep journals for many reasons. Sometimes it's about their travels or what they had happen in their day. Some people do it for good mental health reasons, just for a connection to their mind and their soul and spirit. So there's a lot of reasons to keep a journal also. The other reason I wanted to show this picture is because it's a really good example of how you can incorporate art into a journal. And so there are words and some sort of text here where the person writing it is talking about things such as keeping a diary, way to keep a diary, and why to keep a diary. And then little pictures and illustrations that go along with those words. So the most elaborate picture is probably this one of the person laying on the couch and writing in their diary. The other ones are very simple little kind of doodles and simple illustrations. So I want you to understand you don't have to be an excellent artist to do this. You can almost add any sort of little doodles and embellishments or details to your journaling pages. So here we have some very simple birds that are very, very primitive in the way they're drawn. So that's nothing fancy. And there's a wheel here with a hamster on. It's a hamster wheel that has to do with choices. There's a tombstone here that has to go with some of the words. And at the top, you can see besides the diary I pointed to, there's also these little doodles. And so that's what I like about this illustration. It's also all black and white. The only part that's color are these stamped signature inks that the artist put on. The rest is all black and white. So you really can just keep simple black and white journal with some simple illustrations if that's what you are drawn to do. So the supplies that you would use, and you probably have a lot of these already around, especially if you already do art, you have a good collection of these. So you need a notebook, a sketchbook, or paper. And I lump them all together because how you choose to do your journal entries will be different than me and other people. Some people buy those journal books that have lines in them to write in that way and make them very text heavy with just maybe a few pictures. Other people choose to use more like a blank sketchbook where they're going to put a lot of art in it and just a few words. And then you can just even use plain pieces of paper. I will show you how I like to use watercolor paper that I tear or rip or cut into 5x7 rectangles or smaller squares. You also could use a pencil or a pen, and those are just basic things to get started with when you're doing your first sketches and writing your words. And then for color, you may want to add color. Often I do using watercolor paints. You could use magic markers. You could use colored pencils. So those are usually my go-to things I use, but there's also a lot of different other ways you can add color to your pictures. And lastly, I did add on here something about stickers or pictures or photos or things you would cut out instead of drawing. So those are what I term as, you know, some embellishments of maybe stickers or adding things like ticket stubs or pieces of a map. It depends what you're writing about, but those I've seen all sorts of ideas for adding to journaling pages. And I kind of touched on why you might want to keep a journal and why add art. Well, my reason for adding art is because I am a very visual person. So I do like to write, but usually I like to draw something more that to me conveys a whole story behind the picture. I'm just very visual. Maybe you like to write more and only do few amount of pictures. It can vary for that too. So who already keeps a journal that I can see out there? Anybody? Yes, I see some hands. Good. Thank you to my people sharing. I see your hands. Great. So do you already add art to it? No, not really. Okay. So Linda says yes, somewhat. All right. Well, hopefully I'm going to give you some more ideas about how that can be done. So here's inspiration that comes to mind that I thought of right off the top of my head when I started thinking about why you would journal. And this first one here of a campsite is, I must say, probably my number one thing for me as far as inspiring. We go camping, and this even looks just like one of the sites I stayed at. That's not my camper, but we were here at a campsite where there was a creek and a picnic table. And often when I am camping, I will start writing in my camping journal about what the weather's like, where we're at, what the campsite's like, you know, what I see around me, things I really like, or places we went to in that area. So those are all parts of my camping journal. And then I can start to add little pictures that have to do with it. So I do have a really heavy text written camping journal. And then I also have more of a picture heavy journal where I do little sketches. And I'm going to show some of that to you. Another one of my favorite inspirations is nature, anything outside. We go hiking. I like to watch the birds when I'm sitting in my lounge chair with my binoculars. And I picked this little Baltimore Oriole as a sample of that. And then these two were other things that came to mind just because I have a friend who does gardening and her gardens are beautiful. And I thought that would lend itself to somebody who really is to gardening outdoors, whether it's plants that are vegetables or flowers. You could write about what you planted. You could draw little plot plan pictures. There's a lot that would lend itself to doing a journal for gardening. And down here is one of the more popular things I see because I do follow certain journal artists on Instagram. And one of the best things I see that they write about and do is about travel, especially since I haven't been able to do it for a while. And they often keep a travel journal with pictures or little sketches of what they went to see, as far as maybe you know, the architecture or landmarks, or by the sea, things that they would see there. So it's a really good inspiration for pictures, but also writing about what they visited and where they went. So one of the first ones I wanted to show you was one to do with nature, because like I said, that's one of the big inspirations for me. And this is one of those 5x7 pieces of watercolor paper. And I usually get very like lower grade, nothing too expensive watercolor paper. It holds the watercolor well and it's not too rough. And I can write on it. So that's what you'll see a lot of my examples are done on. And then I'm going to share with you my little binders that I keep them in, because I like to do these loosely, that I have the flexibility of just carrying this page around and then put it into my binder to save it. So for this nature theme, I actually worked with a group that we were learning some different journal techniques, and the theme was leaves. And I love leaves, and it was in the fall. So I usually gather leaves at my campsite, put them on the table to look at. There's just so many beautiful colors that I find in leaves. So I immediately thought of this verse that came to my mind whenever I hear of leaves, because it's a song that my grandmother, who came over here from Czechoslovakia when she was a very young girl, and then she lived with us for quite a while. So she sang this song to me from when I was just baby on up, and I can still sing it. And the words are just so really beautiful. So this is just one of the verses. Come, said the leaves to the wind one day, come over meadow and play with me. Put on your dresses of red and gold. winter is coming and the days grow cold. So that goes along with the autumn theme. And I did give it a title. Often I'll do some sort of little title just because I'm also a graphic artist. So I've always done lettering and really play with letter styles. And I wanted to give a title to it. And I did these leaves as quick sketches, just mainly outlines. And then I also used the watercolors in a fairly quick way. So I wrote the words in ink that's permanent with one of my fountain pens. And I did not outline. Often I'll do a pen and ink outline to my pencil drawing first before I do watercolor. But in this one, I went straight to the watercolor with no ink outline. Questions about anything so far? Okay, if you have any, you can just shout out, hey, Chris, I have a question. So this is one of the more heavy picture, I was going to say pictorial entries in my journal. And like I said, often these pictures tell me a story, so I don't have to write it out. Like I look at my little dog laying in that her bed in the campsite by the woods. I know exactly where I was. I can remember her laying there. She loves going camping. This was a great campsite that we go back to now fairly often. So all that tells me my story without writing it. But like I said, you could choose to write, a whole little story and then put pictures with it too. But this is a very common way I do my art journal entries. So I still gave it a title because that gives me the theme and the context for what my pictures will relate to. And the title is Endless Mountains because that's the name of the area where we go camping quite often and where this campground is. And then I put the date on it so that I have reference to what time of year we were there. And sometimes I sign it and have a date on it. So this first picture with the bear, that's not a real bear, though I do see real bear there sometimes, but that's a carved bear. And it's just it's a cool wooden carving. I wish I could get one from my little camp we have. But I drew a picture that's at the camp store where you go up to get your supplies or check in and all that. And then I told you that's my dog on her bed laying there. And this is a little birdhouse that I sit on the table. That's just like a wooden structure, smaller. And I put some leaves in because I usually do add leaves or some sort of plant picture into my sketches I do. So here you see, I did do pencil first and then outlined it with my permanent black ink marker. And usually when I am doing these outlines and these ink parts to it, I am using my Sharpie Fine Point. That is my go-to pen I really like to use. They have them at the Dollar Tree store, so they're easy to find. And it has a really nice fine point. It doesn't bleed, it doesn't run if I use my watercolors. So I like it, and it's just easy to have and grab. I also have some other like more expensive pens, with Micron, and there's uni pens you can get, but the Sharpie is my favorite one that I use. So that's, you can see after the pen and ink, then I added watercolor in. And usually I'm putting my watercolor down fairly quickly, so this whole thing is not going to take me that long. I'm not spending hours on it. And often I'll do some of it and then put it down and come back to it. That's just how I kind of sit around and relax and have fun. And you can kind of see up here a piece of the little pouch I have it in. It's like a vinyl holder that I made, and I'll show you that later. So I have some in there, and then I also have a binder where I keep some. Questions? Okay, so here's another example that of a theme, food and garden, and that seems to be sometimes a popular one. And these are not my works of art, but ones I found on the web. The left one is in a bound sketchbook journal. The middle of it goes right down here. So it's probably a higher quality one. I tend to use cheaper things just because I found that if I get very expensive sketchbooks, I don't want to mess them up, so I don't grab them and use them as often as the other ones that I feel like I can make mistakes or be sloppy in or whatever. But this is probably one of the Strathmore journals that I can see because of the binding and the cover and all. And what they did here was just illustrate and write a few words about their Christmas dinner. So the illustration part of this is very more involved than simple quick sketches like the one on the right, and it's beautifully done with watercolors. I think they did use pen and ink to go around their sketches and write their words. So it says what they had at dinner. So it really tells the story in itself. It's titled Christmas Dinner. And then it's hard to read, but I've deciphered some of them. It's tofu salad, roasted vegetables, scallops and spaghetti, and chicken rice with something, roast ham. So it's really all about what they had at their spread on their table for Christmas dinner, and beautifully done picture. So I'm sure that took more time than some of the ones I do. On the right-hand side, this kind of relates to that garden theme that I told you about. You can see they did use text in here. It's harder to read because it's blurry, but I just wanted you to get the feel of how the combination with text and pictures can look and work. So they have some pictures they drew of a leek and rhubarb and an onion. So that has to do with what's planted. And then a plate and dinner fork and knife, which has to do with what they're going to do with what they're growing and make their meals. And then down here is some more garden reference with netting over their plants and a bird that's eating berries and a vine growing up a stake. So you can see it's a combo, a good combo of words and pictures. And that's what I want you to get a feel for, that you could have a lot of pictures with just a small amount of text. You could have, you know, a good mix, half and half, or you could have a lot of writing with just a small amount of pictures. So this theme is fun because who doesn't have, well, I was going to say, who doesn't have fun? Maybe the past year was a little harder to have fun. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to having more fun. But these are references I found for journals that have to do with fun themes. So the one on the left is one of mine. Again, that's a 5x7 piece of watercolor paper that I cut in this case. And it was with the group I did that journaling class with again, hence why I did these boxy areas for pictures. And I did a title. The theme was party. And I live in a big farming area. So during the fall, which is when I did this class, many of the fields turned to pumpkins as an income source. And there's one right down the road. So I took pictures of the field and gourds. And I often use my iPhone to take pictures, especially even like camping. When we're out hiking, I find mushrooms, I find plants in the forest that I want to document, and then I use those pictures for my reference for drawing. Some people like to go sit right in the field and sketch and draw what they see, more like a plein air feel to it, which is on the site, you're drawing what you see. I like to have my pictures to look at and save. So even when my dog was laying in her bed, she was in front of me and I did a quick sketch, but I knew she was going to move. So I also took a picture so that I could look at that. So here you see I did a little field picture. I did some gourds. I did another close-up of another scarecrow figure, and then the pumpkins down here in the bottom. That's probably the one that had the more detailed use of paint. So I did use pencil for the basic sketches and division of space, the lettering, and then I outlined it with my Sharpie with the black ink, and then I painted the watercolor in. So I just usually know what my theme is before I start, not necessarily where I'm going with pictures, but what my theme is. And I often do think about, do I want to write a little story with this or a little verse in there? And in this one and the other one I showed you about camping, I really didn't want to write anything else, and I just wanted pictures. So I divided up into like an attractive layout, nothing specific, and I don't right away have in mind all the pictures I'm going to use. I think I had in mind the bigger one would be something to do with pumpkins, and I wanted to include more of a little scape of the field. So I knew that would be one, but then I had to think about what I'd put in these, and I had gourd pictures that I wanted to use. So that's how I put that together. And you'll see, sometimes I come out of the edges. Keep that in mind too. There's a way to kind of break through your boundaries if you choose to do this type of layout where you're dividing up sections, that you can still make it, you know, not too confined. So that's how I did that one. These are other artist samples. The one in the middle I saved to show you because you can see it is done with stamps. I think it's a lot of rubber stamping they did. Very little, minimal words. Do not even be afraid to show your colors to the world is the quote they used, and they made it a colorful array of, you know, designs. So it's not even sketches that they added. It's mostly stamping things they did, and maybe some, you know, color with their magic markers or watercolors that they just put in with a graphic feel to it. And then this one up in the right-hand corner is by an artist I follow who does beautiful text written things in a lovely handwriting, and titles with, you know, the days of the week. And then they add more like things they rip out of paper, or these are washi tape strips. If you know what that is, that's a decorative tape that's used for scrapbooking. And here again, I think this is a ripped scrap of paper they wrote on. That might be a sketch they did. It's hard to tell because it isn't too close up, but it's got a lot more in it than just sketches. So it's very heavy with what they're writing about each day. And down here is also a similar kind of date book feel to it. There's a lot of people who use what's called traveler's journals and have date books in them. And this person is using her date book to document things. So the left-hand side, which was done on the 17th, has some sort of verse in. I think it's signed anonymous. So maybe it's a poem or some sort of verse from a song. And they just did a few little graphic circles and little doodles on here with watercolor. And then the right side has what I'm assuming is the theme of the writing, which is a ladybug. And that's done with watercolors on a much larger basis because it takes up the whole page. But this journal is probably only about 5 by 7, 6 by 8, I'm thinking. It could be 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10 too. But it's one of those leather-bound traveler's journals. If you're not sure what they are and you look them up, you'll see they have a way that you can add notebooks on the inside. You can add a date book, you can add sketchbooks, because in the middle are stretchy bands that you slip them in there. So I have one of these journals, and you can add an address book. You could, it's like really flexible for keeping all your things in one space. Questions about any of that? Okay, so we're going to look at the process I use, and I'll walk you through it step by step so that you can go and this weekend do your own little creation too. So this here is a 5 by 5 piece of watercolor paper. And you can see what I did was rip this one because I wanted the rough edges. There's a special way to rip watercolor paper. You put like a line of water on it, and then it soaks down in there and makes these little areas be able to be ripped with a nice rough edge to it. So that's what I did for that one. And what you first do is consider your layout, where you want these boxes to be as I use them in my art journals. And like I said, did I come up with a theme for this? Yes, that was the first thing I thought of, was what was this going to be about? What was I going to put in it? Was I going to write something? Was I going to put it mostly with pictures and maybe a title? So what I decided was my theme was going to relate to a hiking trip that my husband and I took. And actually we do it quite often. We hike a lot. And we end up on this trail that's local called the Mason-Dixon Trail. And it just is very interesting to us that we end up on it without even trying. Often we plan our hikes and pick trails, but sometimes we're just taking walks on state game land, or we're out where we're camping, hiking, and we end up on this trail. It just like it appears everywhere, even when we're driving, because it's also on roadways. So I wanted to write something about that of interest to me, and that how we end up getting on this trail even when we don't plan it. So I knew I was going to title it, which would be the trail name, Mason-Dixon Trail. And I did want to write a little story about that. So I saved this larger box for what I thought, you know, I could write a good little paragraph about. And then I filled in these other 3 boxes to draw some pictures in. That was a plan. I knew maybe one picture would have a trail reference to it in it. And I wasn't sure what the other ones would have in it, because I do have a lot of pictures I took on the trail when we were hiking. So I then look through my pictures and think about what I want to add. So these are considerations when you're first getting started. You consider the layout and the page division, how you're going to do that, text versus picture. And as you go along, you do want to think about, am I going to add color or not? Am I just going to keep this black and white? Because that's going to determine, just like we saw that first diary picture, are you going to do a lot of ink sketches and writings without any color? Or are you going to do looser sketches that you add some sort of color to? And then lastly, are there going to be areas where you have the freedom to put other little embellishments or designs in it, such as these spaces here that you see? And in the middle, this one became like a space that was there. And the one where I showed you, I drew leaves in, that was a space that ended up there. So sometimes the accidental spaces give me an impetus to decide to put something there. Sometimes around the border, I've done more details. I've seen people who do elaborate borders on their layouts and make them look like a framed, beautiful picture. In this one, I didn't think I was going to do much with the border. That's why I took the little boxes right to the edge. Questions about any of that with just getting started with the pencil layout? Okay, so here we go to the next phase. The one on the left is when I have finished my pencil. So what I did was kind of scribble in pencil my little things I was going to put with my pictures that I had decided to use. And I did a quick pencil writing of what I wanted to say. So in these pictures, I had decided I was going to use a moss picture that I took a photo of. And up here, I told you I wanted something about the trail, and the markers on the trail are blue blazes. That's the marker that keeps you on track. And I knew I wanted to associate that with the trail that I knew we were on. So the title is Mason-Dixon Trail. I penciled that in. And I penciled in these little sayings to go with the pictures. And it says, we just keep seeing those blue. I love the moss growing so green, because that was only going to be moss. But as you see, when we come over to this side, I changed it because I had this larger space where the moss was. I wanted to put something else there, and I chose a mushroom picture I have, because I do also take a lot of pictures of mushrooms. So I changed my little words to, I love the moss and mushrooms. So you have the flexibility of doing that, you know, especially when you're doing it in pencil. And when I wrote my story, it also helps to make sure what I'm saying fits. I wanted to get the basic gist of what this was about. And if I had to change something like the word PA, I probably knew I couldn't write out the word Pennsylvania, or it might not have all fit. It could have, but I just wrote PA. So you have flexibility with your words too when you write them here in pencil. So then I went over and started to add the, do more of the ink. And I did the box for some reason first. I still hadn't decided what to put there as far as a picture. I did the title name, and this is where I'm showing you how it can come out of the edges to just give it a little more interest. And then I started to do my other sketches in pencil that I went over with in pen. Here, the moss is coming outside the border. And so my little story goes like this. Stephen, who's my husband, Stephen and I have often been exploring or hiking and accidentally find we are on the Mason-Dixon Trail. So we've decided we'll purposely try to hike it in sections throughout PA, and maybe eventually try to do all the other parts to finish it someday. And that was last December that I wrote this and did this. So then I started, to do more of the finishing parts that would have the ink on it. Like I said, I'm doing more finishing all with this, and I still haven't decided what picture to put on there. And in the left one, I did all this color first before I then decided what I wanted in this upper right-hand corner. And I decided to go with the emblem of like the logo for that trail. And then in the background, I just did a little rough inference for a map to show where this trail goes through Pennsylvania, down and up into the state. Again, it goes into Maryland. And I wrote down some city names so that or town names so that you could see kind of where it goes, nothing real technical. And then I choose what I'm going to use for color. I kind of had in mind, I wanted to use colored pencil for this. I more often use watercolor, but in this one, I pulled out my colored pencils and wanted to use them. Except for this one, I started to do in magic markers, and magic markers are very bold and bright, and you don't have as much control with shading. So I put some colored pencil in the trail part, and I wanted to make sure you saw that blue blaze, because that's what the picture's about. But then here I did a lot of colored pencil for the background of the writing I did, and for the mushroom picture, background of the Mason-Dixon Trail title. I did go over the blue pencil with some blue marker to tie that into the marker. And when I went over to the right-hand side here and finished this logo, I used marker in there combined with some colored pencil so that it does tie it all together. And the embellishments, the little doodles I added are with magic marker. I went around the outside of my text box with marker. And that is my finished product there of what I then put in my binder to save. Questions? Anybody have any questions? What brand colored pencil? I think I have Statler. They're Statler pencils, and they are just straight colored pencils. I do have a set of pencils that you can use water with after you use them and kind of turn them into watercolor. I haven't played with them much yet because I usually just go straight to my watercolor paints that I like to use. But these are Statler pencils. Any other questions? Okay. So here's another one, and it's in that plastic binder, and I'm going to show you this so that you can see it right from me, because this is a good time to show it to you. This is it's a vinyl kind of flappy thing I made. I sewed it on the sewing machine. I took a piece of vinyl and I lined it with clear vinyl. And then this is where I said I put the elastic in through those holes. They are, I know it's, I hope you can see that, it's a little bit bright there. And I put elastic in, and then I fed paper through that. So if you would look up how to make your own journal, traveler's journal, because that's what they're called, even though I'm using this as an art journal, you will see there's instructions to do that. And then on these pages that kind of hang on those things is where I've done pictures. That's the one I showed you for the Endless Mountain. Here's the one I'm going to show you now. That isn't quite done yet. So that's what I take with me, and then I just tie it shut. I take that with me when I'm camping. It's waterproof, and it works out well. And then this is another one for an idea for you. Now I painted that on the front, but it was plain white, and it is a 3-ring binder, small size. So it's the like 6x8 size, and it has 3 rings in it. And I bought these plastic sleeves that you can put in here, and I got a whole pack of them at like Staples. And then I slipped my pictures right into those sleeves to hold them. So there's the one on the leaves that I did, and here's the one I just showed you that's finished. So these sleeves hold my artwork, and that's why I like to do 5x7s, because they fit in here. It's just a nice way to collect and save them. Sometimes I give them away, I frame them. That's one of the ways I like to keep my pictures collected. Any questions about those things? I found the binder in a thrift shop. They usually have a stationary bin, and you can find lots of binders in there, and you can get larger ones if you want to do the 8.5 by 11 size, you know, which is like the full regular business size, but I like mine to be smaller, 5 by 7. So here's the one I showed you that isn't finished. It was done when we went camping to Fowler's Hollow. Again, I kind of thought about what pictures I wanted to include, what the writing was I wanted to put on, because I loved this campsite. It was beautiful. It was right by a stream. I did a little picture of my hummingbird feeder that I always hang up, and a hummingbird found it right away, a stump that was there. And I probably am putting my camper picture in here. I just hadn't drawn it yet. So we're going back there in a couple months, and I plan on finishing this. Even though it's dated 19, I'll probably put something over here that says something like end 2021, since I really forgot I had this until I was looking through my pictures one day. So this is an in the works one that I wanted you to see, and I am using photos for reference that I had from this camping trip. So that was one I just thought was also of interest to you. Now here's some other little sketches I do in a very small sketchbook that is about 4 by 6, and I got it at Walmart, and was $5. I like it because if you see there's perforated edges here along the spiral, I can rip this out. So if I wanted to rip this out and use it in my bigger journal and then write a story about it, such as this, which I pulled off Wikipedia about the Columbia Wrightsville Bridge, I could write something beside it in my other journal book. So there's also times I do really quick little sketches and title it and date it, and then frame them and give them away for friends who, you know, wanted. Maybe there's somebody I know who loved this bridge because it's right near our town here. So that's just an example of how you could do something, you know, combo, like the words and the story might be something you have in mind, and you want to do a quick sketch that you're then going to separate and glue into your journal. That's another way you can add things to it. So here is my little grab and go bag, my travel bag of what I use. When I go camping, I grab this and take it with me. It is a shower caddy bag. That's another thing you can find at thrift stores. Also inexpensively at other stores that like have health and beauty supplies. They're often very inexpensive. So I like it, number one, because it is waterproof and I can zip everything up in there, and it's contained in this small space. It's meant to hang in a shower and has all these compartments. That's another thing that's nice. This one is a Sports Illustrated one because my husband got it free when he subscribed to the magazine, and it came in the mail, and I was like, I'm taking that. He doesn't even use a shower caddy, and I've had it for years and I love it. So the left and the right side have these very long areas that zip, and I have my pens in one side, and I have brushes and colored pencils in another. Then the middle opens up and it flaps up here. This is the little sketchbook I told you about that is 4 by 6 that I got at Walmart. And then back here you can see I have some of those watercolor pages that I cut in a baggie so that they're not going to get wet. And this is a piece of masonite board that I just cut and use an office clip on to clip my page on there when I'm drawing on it. So it's almost like a clipboard. You can buy clipboards at the dollar store too that are made of that masonite, but I wanted something smaller I made to fit in this bag. And there's little like elastic sections where I can also add other things. Well, the one up here has a pencil sharpener and my erasers in. This is my water supply that I use when I paint, and it is a at the dollar store. It was for like salad dressing or something, but I put my water in there. And then I bought this little mixing pan at the dollar store. They have a really nice arts and crafts supply of things now that I get things if I need them. And this one had some clips and other things in. So really easy, less expensive supplies here. This paint set is the most probably out of everything I have with my supplies, probably the most expensive thing I splurged on. It's a Koi watercolor set, K-O-I. And I saw someone else on Instagram who used it for all her art sketches she did in her little thing that she carries and takes with her. And it fit perfectly in this bag. So I think it was 20 some dollars because it is higher quality watercolor paints. You don't have to use higher quality, but I knew I'd be using it a lot. And so this was when I first got it. You can see it's all pristine new and not messed up. It came with a little what's called watercolor pen, where you can put water in the barrel and squeeze it in there, and then just squeeze it to get some water out of it. There's little sponges here and a mixing tray. So this lid closes and it fits perfectly in my bag. I got it through Dick Blick, but I know there's also places like Michael's or Hobby Lobby that have nice, smaller, transportable watercolor sets if that's what you're looking for. Any questions about my supplies? Okay, so this is an artist I follow, Jean Mackay, M-A-C-K-A-Y. She does beautiful little art journal entries in a very similar way to what I now use, with the boxes and divisions of space, and then she writes some words. So this is a quote she used that she wrote, and this is something she wrote about the yellow-throated golden crowned kinglet, black-throated green winter. So it's a lot about whatever she saw here on Hog Island when she went to Audubon camp. And I liked it because you can see she makes her pictures fairly simple. I mean, the bird is a little more elaborate and the moth over here. And yes, this little seascape has some detail in it. But really, if you break it down, it's some simple things that she sketched, used pen and ink for, and then used her watercolor for. Even the puffins, they're just, you know, a nice, simple little outline sketch that she put the watercolor in that you know it's a puffin. Her egg has that mottled color on with watercolor. So I thought that was a good example of seeing how you can also use this technique. And she does have some of her pictures that come outside the edges to add more interest. So here's some totally different styles. I know people say to me, well, I can't draw like that, you know. Well, you don't even have to draw. You can still put some other things in there as far as making it more collage-like, or pictures that you're tearing out of something, or photographs. So this one on the left is showing how there's text here that's fairly a good long paragraph. And then there's pictures that they did with I think photographs and yellow post-it notes. And this looks like maybe cut out of wallpaper, or they sketched it in another book and then cut it out. And this looks like the only like sketched part by hand, which it's a paint tube and yellow paint coming out of it. And this is a paint sample that you can get like at Home Depot or something. So that's a totally different style and feel to it. I know people also do a lot with collage, scrapbook type things in journals and write things in it that way. This one is another artist I follow, AlisonStrine.com. She does these wonderful dog sketches and journal entries, and she does a lot of different breeds. And the reason I chose this to show you is because it is a primitive style. It's very simply done. Her writing is a simple style and she doodles it. You can see there's loose implications of boxes in some of these spaces, and some are a little more outlined. And she adds these little embellishments and doodles. So her printing has a more primitive style to it. I just thought that's nice to show you. You don't have to do fantastic art creations. You can also do more simple things. And I love the results she gets with hers. I will send you, you know, these references when I send you the email after class. This artist, on the other hand, is an example I chose because it is more elaborate with style, with fancy artwork. And I think a lot of this is done with colored pencils. And she also writes a lot about what she sees with those animals, the chipmunk, the squirrel, and over here it's birds, cedar waxwing, and Baltimore oriole. So those are another example of combo text heavy with pictures journal entries. So do I have any questions before we wrap it up? I see someone said, Val said she would love to hear about journaling for self-discovery, healing, and deeper meaning. And Val, I think if you look on the Get Set Up website, there used to be a class, there might still be one, that does go into more writing, creative writing things. So if you put creative writing in the search, and after we go through this, I'll go to the site and see if we can see something. But I'll summarize what we went through, and these are notes you'll get in your email. You can add interest and pizzazz to your journaling with art, and there are many options to choose from for creating the art. Your inspiration can come from your words, your favorite places you go, the fun things you do, and nature surrounding us. And some additional resources for you, which I will send you, are Pinterest, which there's always things to find on nature journaling there. And I have my own nature journaling page that I save things to because it's just one of the best resources for me to then go back to look at and find it. I really like to use my Pinterest page. So if I go down here to my nature journaling page, you'll see that I have saved a lot of things that inspire me for doing my nature journals that I do. And there's people who do similar styles with some, squares. There's some that do elaborate bird ones. I love to do birds. Here's one, Leslie Failing is someone I follow. Here's the one that's from G. McKay that I showed you, but Leslie Failing does this style too with the boxes, so I like hers. So Pinterest is a good resource to use for that. And then these are 3 different blogs. I will send you the links to them so that you can see. This is Lillian Thistle, and it's about how to start a nature journal, a beginner's guide, if that's a theme you want to try. She really gives some good background info on it. And, oops, not that one. This one is another one, a blog on journaling ideas, how to do deeply personal art journals. So Val, this might be of interest to you, how to combine drawing with some very personal art, things you are writing in it. Here's a really good example of using mixed media. There are a few sketches, a watercolor painting, but then photographs, a piece of a map there that she cut out, some washi tape, photos. So that's a really good mix to see in that example. And then the last one is John Muir Laws, who really talks a lot about nature journaling, gives you some little videos to watch. So I thought that was a good resource to send you to. So thank you so much for coming. Before I jump over to the website, I just wanted to wrap things up and say that if you want to share your experience, you can do the hashtag #GetSetUp on any of your social media posts. You could also write Liz at getsetup.io and share any of your thoughts or pictures. She does a blog and she writes about our learners often. So if you wanted to share something, she might be able to share you with our Get Set Up group. This is again the help@getsetup.io email address in case you need help or have ideas or want the recording link, like I said in the beginning. These are some related classes coming up: how to take great photos on your iPhone, iPad basics, all you need to know. And then my next classes coming up are the art of collage and torn paper and basic drawing, nature inspired. After this class, you'll get an email with the notes on that I reviewed, a link to give feedback, and I read them. I really appreciate if you take the time to share your feedback. You can rate the class from 1 to 5 stars. The default is 4. So if you want to make it better, click that 5th star. Some people don't, and they don't realize that's what you do with the stars. Hopefully you don't want to click only 1 star. And you add your comments about the classes or about me. and give us any other feedback, ideas, or what you'd like to see offered or how we could improve. We look at that. We have a team that really looks at that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. This is just a little wrap up about Get Set Up. We are growing and offering more classes every week. We are partnering with assisted care facilities, government agencies, and so we are adding even more guides to our group. And if you're interested in leading an interest group, which can be a one-time thing, say you have a really specific hobby that you would want to share with the group, you can send that to the email link at help@getsetup.io also. So here is the website that I just wanted to show you quickly before we end. One of my favorite things to do, and you see I typed in Kindle last, but say we are looking for like that writing class. So when I type in writing, here we get, Val, some of the things for creative writing. Everyone has a story to tell. Mindful journaling is a social hour that is proposed. So if you see something like this and it says notify me, it doesn't have the actual time, telling them you're interested in that is to click notify me. And when they have enough people interested in that, they will offer the class. So that's a good thing to know about the notify me. It's not like intrusion into your email stuff. It's so that we get enough people to put together the class. So that's a way to do that. Now, say you're looking for that nature, well, let's look for the drawing class that I was showing you I offer. So I just typed in drawing, and then there's other things that come up for the drawing theme. And this is the basic drawing nature inspired class I offer. So a nice thing on this new website is that you can see right away the class description, when it's offered, and you can log in to book it if you want, because I'm not logged in. But if you're logged in, it would say schedule, and you just schedule it. The other nice thing is if you go to about the guide, and this is for who's ever teaching whatever class you look at, you see it tells a little bit about my background. And then you can go to other classes I teach, because I have learners who say, what other classes do you teach, Chris? Well, now you can easily find it, and it's always associated with the guide that's teaching the class you're looking at. And then you can see the classes that I teach, when they're scheduled, and you can book them right from that page. So it's kind of a very quick way of getting to classes that are done by the same guide. And I think people wanted that, so that helps a lot of people. Anybody else have questions about the website or things they need help with? Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. I appreciate you coming. I hope you got a lot out of this, that you can go out and do some journaling and add some art to it. And in the future, I'm hoping to have a group where we get together and share our art and talk about it. And maybe if you have questions, we can do that. So thank you so much for coming, everybody. Have a very good weekend and take care and enjoy your Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you. You're welcome. Take care.